you've got a symptom, you take a pharmaceutical for that symptom to go away, but you're not actually treating the cause of that symptom. You're suppressing the body's attempts to heal, self-heal, like the fever is a self-heal. But a rash, for example, that's the body eliminating through the skin, and you put steroid cream on that. That's really nasty stuff. It's not ever meant for long-term use. And long-term use can impact and cause diabetes as a secondary condition. So then you're treating the diabetes with something else, which has its own side effects. So we've got this thing called iatrogenic disease, which is basically the next set of symptoms because of the pharmaceutical that you've taken to suppress the symptoms that you started with originally. And we go up, 6th, 7th generation iatrogenic disease. So you get these people who are on multiple pharmaceuticals as they get older.
Kathy, I'm really thankful to have a chat with you today. You have been doing such amazing work for a long time, and I'm always in awe of people that have been doing this work for such a long time and how they've been able to persevere through the years. I guess first question to you is, why do you do it? Why do you can tell us more about what you do, but why do you keep spreading information and trying to help families with information about specifically vaccines, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we formed Vaccination Information South Australia back in 1997 with dual goals to provide parents with information about vaccines and also health. And yeah, that's a while ago.
1997, yeah.
So, I was doing it before that, but not under that name. But yeah, I just keep doing it. People need to be able to talk through their issues, their concerns. They need to be able to source information that's not been generated by the pharmaceutical companies that make the vaccines. So, it's up to us, much like with all the COVID, information that's shared in private networks, because you don't get it in mainstream. It's always been that way with vaccines. So when you're faced with a choice, you've got a new baby or a baby on the way, you need someone to talk to. Back in the day, we had parent networks and I had parent support contacts, north, south, east, west, regional, country, even interstate. So people had someone local that they could contact. But, the no jab, no pay, no jab, no play kind of anti-vaxxer label, it's been happening since 2015, has made it difficult for people to share any choice they've made about not vaccinating their child or children. So, yeah.
So before that, Kathy, were parents more immunisation, like jabbing their kids less, or they were just able to talk about it? From 2015, did that conversation kind of get harder to have with people?
Yeah, 2015 was no jab, no pay. I actually went around Australia to a series of rallies and lobbying in Canberra as well, because this meant, those financial penalties for childcare, that's a huge cost that parents we're, having to bear now. But the way I saw it, because what was happening is, as you, vaccinate, your child gets sick and then the next round is due of vaccines, but your child's not well, or you've seen what happened last time. So what was happening was the parents were looking to refuse some of the vaccines, not all of them, and also wanting to delay them so that their child would be in a better state of health before the next one was administered. And no jab, no pay was just like, it was a great big boot coming down on them. That's how I described it at the time. It's like, nah, our way or the highway, mate. And, some parents wore it. They were still allowed to, the children are still allowed in childcare and kindergarten settings. But obviously in South Australia 2020, that all changed with no jab, no play. So it really was because of vaccine hesitancy and growing vaccine hesitancy that these stricter controls and removal of exemptions, no more conscientious objection, no more religious exemption, and medical exemptions literally became impossible. So you couldn't, unless your child had a given vaccine and had a major anaphylactic reaction, a really nasty, severe reaction, and then you would have to prove to get an exemption that that was related, but then that exemption would only cover that particular vaccine, and it was limited in how long it would apply for. So you started to have no choice, in this world where it's all about women getting back in the workforce, right? So that's really taken away choice. If you want to participate in the way that you're supposed to, which is, have baby, get back to work, 6 months, 12 months, 9 months, whatever, you've got to have all vaccines on time according to the schedule.
When did you see a big change, like you personally see a big change from parents, mums or dads being at home with their children on a full-time basis versus that childcare whole industry just going nuts and both parents work? What's your experiences through that transition?
Yeah, look, I went for a wander around Adelaide Uni yesterday with one of my daughters. I remembered being back there 28 years ago using their childcare facility because I went back and did a graduate diploma in education. So that was quite the memory. I mean, for me, childcare was like 2 afternoons a week, I think, or it wasn't much. It was just a few hours, and she was 2 years old, but she got very sick every time she went to childcare. So I ended up moving to a smaller family daycare type situation. But yeah, I guess in terms of the women re-entering the workforce, I suppose in the last 10 years, that's really been standard, hasn't it?
To get back as soon as possible, it seems, as well, not even take that year.
Yeah. And it's also, women are birthing later. They're birthing in their 30s now. So, I was 23 when I had my eldest. But so birthing in your 30s, you've already had, 10, 15 years of career building as well. So you've got a position to go back into. Though in saying that, just in the last fortnight, I've heard of 2 women who've, had children, gone back after 6 months or on, 2-3 days a week, but their position has suffered, their standing has suffered. They've not been offered leadership roles anymore. And, despite having built that 15-year kind of career in that space first, there's still this, competitiveness. And, imagine if you've built that career and then you've gone and you've had a baby, you've come back because it's important to you, this work, but you're no longer of the same standing.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that's not everyone's experience, but it's funny, I heard that twice in less than a week.
That happens, doesn't it? You hear it once and you're like, and Kathy, you've got 4 girls, don't you?
Yeah.
And what was the conscious decision not to raise them with pharmaceuticals? Where did that come from?
Oh, so I did, I'd studied pharmacology science degree, and pharmacology is my major in my science degree, and it was really alarming actually at the time. And I didn't go into details when I talked to Meryl Dory the other night, but I'll tell you exactly. My mum was suffering a nervous breakdown, and I was studying antidepressants at the time, and it was just a whole real awakening as to the overuse of antidepressants. They were designed for short-term use, not long-term use, and this is back in the early, 1981, so it had already morphed into widespread prescription. But just in general, for that whole year, even just every drug I studied, I just thought you had to know all of the side effects and interactions and potential benefits, and their potential benefits. There was to me, it wasn't an exact science or way that actually fixed anything. It made things worse. It led to iatrogenic disease. So I didn't feel a need to use any pharmaceuticals. I think Jessica, my eldest, who was vaccinated, I gave her 1 dose of Panadol and she threw it up on me. And that was it. That was the last time. But that was when I was complying, that's when I was lining up. I was actually living in New South Wales. There was the vaccination van would pull up and people would run kids through it. So, and that was standard procedure. So when she had a reaction at 2 to the measles, mumps, rubella vaccine, that I stopped vaccinating, I looked into it and realised that, like pharmaceuticals, there was a lot of question marks, put it mildly.
And then how do you navigate through that? Because it's the norm is so the norm and everyone's doing it, and trying to find an alternative is hard. So how did you navigate through that?
Easily at the time, because there weren't This was pre all the record keeping. And you see, as of 1997, with the 7-point plan to immunise Australia was launched. And that's when they enlisted doctors to make every visit a vaccination opportunity. And they enlisted hospitals to check on the vaccination status of anyone attending, any children. And they began the Australian immunisation register for children. And so they started ramping up the pressure then. So by then, 1997, I already had my 4 children. Now Hannah would have been at kindy. So it wasn't something that really impacted. There was an impact when I went back to uni to study my Grad Dip Ed, and the childcare centre had a requirement around vaccination status, and that sort of piqued my interest. I went like, why? But, nothing like now. So it wasn't hard to navigate, and it wasn't something that I had to hide. And we put on seminars, we put on playgroups and parent support meetings, and we hired venues. And it wasn't till 2015 that even hiring a venue became something that came with an anti-vax label. And
Wow.
I don't know if you remember back the movie Vaxxed, like we had to keep venues secret because it was just so shunned upon to show anything. You can't believe it. Sounds unbelievable when I'm saying it, doesn't it?
A lot of things do lately. It's like, when you know what you've lived through and then you're retelling it, you're like, is this made up? Am I really saying it right?
Yeah, it doesn't seem real. But, back in the day, so I think it was Sherry Tenpenny or Suzanne Humphreys, but one of the big American researchers was coming for an Australian tour and they wouldn't give her a visa.
That's a good sign, isn't it? That's a really good sign that you're onto something and they don't let you in.
Sherry Tenpenny from memory, but nothing's.
And then how did we're having not using aspirin. What did you use and how did you find alternatives to health versus using pharmaceuticals? How did you go down that path?
So back then, I was just breastfeeding Jess until the age of 2, but actually didn't need anything really. I didn't have an alternative there. Of course, there's homeopathy now that's very effective for fever and things, but they didn't really get sick. And if they got sick, that would be after sort of a big weekend of birthday parties with bad diet or something like that. Yeah, it wasn't really. Yeah.
Oh, so you found that they just weren't even sick, so you didn't even need to use the antibiotic, because antibiotics I just hear left, right and centre that kids are always on antibiotics. So
yeah,
your kids just didn't even need it.
No, if you don't vaccinate, then you don't get that infection. You don't need those antibiotics. You don't get that fever. That being said, I would be very careful with diet, particularly if they were sort of coming down with something. No sugar, no dairy. No exceptions, kind of thing. And I always have vitamin C and colloidal silver and bibs and bobs, but over the years, quite a few more bibs and bobs, but not that my children needed, more that when I speak to other parents. I was pretty lucky when I woke up about vaccines. I also, got into organic food, organic fruit and veg. So that's always been a part of their diets growing up as well. And
wow.
Australia's quite lucky, because this goes back 34 years of eating organically.
Wow.
In Sydney and then in Adelaide, and that industry has just gone bunter. It's just, the produce is amazing now and it's plentiful, and it's also, obviously we can see it on the supermarket shelves as well. But yeah, it was largely nutrition that helped them through, occasionally a dose of vitamin C.
I actually don't like my reaction to this, which is like, wow, you just were healthy with your kids and they weren't sick. Oh my God.
Well,
and it's like, how much is that the brainwashing? Like, of course, they haven't been exposed to anything harmful, any toxins, and they eat well. So, of course, they're going to be well. But
yeah, it's not, it wasn't, it's not necessarily that. You've got to rest.
all the environmental
things. You just do those normal things. But I guess that's how I was brought up, and not that I got sick very often, but just rest and not a lot of fuss really, but not Panadol. Yeah. I knew it wasn't really doing anything of benefit. You know what I mean?
Can you tell me a bit about that? Like, what's the harmful effects, or what can you explain what goes on with the Panadol?
Gosh, I'd have to look it up. You can overdose on Panadol and go into organ system failure. It's toxic to the liver. But the other thing is when you're suppressing a fever, you're suppressing part of the immune response, which is actually a healing response. So when your body's trying to eliminate, which is what sickness is really, through the mucous membranes or the skin, it develops a fever so that it speeds up that process. It's all part of the healing process. So, Panadol's counterproductive to that. But it is also toxic. It's not a natural thing. So you've got to try and get back to nature and your remedies. That being said, a lot of kids, it's a hard one to advise on, in the sense that if your child's had Panadol and repeated Panadol, then their thermostat, heating and cooling mechanism isn't necessarily going to be working well. So there's probably people a lot more qualified than me to help repair damage to that kind of damage with kids. And of course, you don't want your kid having a seizure. Normally, that's not something that's normally happening, but it has been normalised as well. Like if your child has a seizure after a vaccine, that's normal. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's normal for kids to have seizures. No, well, I don't think so.
No.
Not in my experience. But yeah.
Would that be true to be said, like, from most or I would say all that's my personal opinion, is that's what pharmaceuticals are. They are a Band-Aid to mask the true symptoms, then making the symptoms or the illness worse, so you continue to be reliant upon pharmaceuticals. How would you describe that?
Yeah. Look, that's about right. You've got a symptom, you take a pharmaceutical for that symptom to go away, but you're not actually treating the cause of that symptom. You're suppressing the body's attempts to heal, self-heal. So like the fever is a self-heal, but a rash, for example, that's the body eliminating through the skin, and you put steroid cream on that. Okay, that's really nasty stuff. It's not ever meant for long-term use, and long-term use can impact and cause diabetes as a secondary condition. So then you're treating the diabetes with something else, which has its own side effects. So we've got this thing called iatrogenic disease, which is basically the next set of symptoms because of the pharmaceutical that you've taken to suppress the symptoms that you started with originally. And we go up, 6th, 7th generation iatrogenic disease. So you get these people who are on multiple pharmaceuticals as they get older. They go back to the steroid. So then your kidney function's affected, and you're starting to have swelling in your lower limbs. So then you're on something to promote that kidney function, which is then affecting your blood pressure. So we'll have to revisit your blood pressure medication, etc. So it just becomes a growing circus of drugs.
It seems quite obvious when you take a step back and you look at it and you learn about health and things like that. From your experience, why do parents keep on using pharmaceuticals for their kids? Is it the fear of something's going to go wrong, or from your experience, why do you think we keep using pharmaceuticals?
So because we're indoctrinated to use the Western medical system, it comes at you from every direction in terms of just the reliance basically on a general practitioner. You're told not to make your own decisions. You're told to, look out for all these warning signs, get yourself to a doctor. And it's just it's that faith and trust which has been cultivated. If you've been brought up in a family where there's a nurse or a doctor, do you know what I mean? That's their career. Or family member. That's the way they approach things. And it's also been quite deliberate to marginalise alternative treatments. It wasn't back in the day. Back in the day, doctors were being encouraged to work alongside natural health practitioners because people were seeking complementary medicines. So that goes back about 15 years. And this is published recommendations for general practice is to work alongside complementary practitioners because that's what patients are expecting, because that's what they're looking for. So we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world where, they've actively penalised natural practices. Mm-hmm. They've removed subsidies. They've discredited, like homeopathy, they've always had a field day discrediting, but, that's sort of expanded to a range of other practices now. And of course, the practitioners, they fought hard. They fought hard for recognition, but they're just not getting it. So it's got to be up to the individual to go looking for that stuff now. If your, perspective is sort of fairly narrow in your circle of family and friends anyway, where are you going to get that influence? You'd have to go looking for it. You'd have to actively go looking for it. It's not just out there.
No, but that's what we're finding though, isn't it? Is the ones that are actively actively participating in their lives consciously, they are going the ones looking because they're asking questions. They're like, something doesn't really feel right. Something doesn't seem right. Like something's off. And the ones that are going looking, well, it's so much easier to find the answers now than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like there's a lot of information out there now saying the truth about what's going on.
Yeah, like COVID it's really done that, ironically, because it has made people have to sit up and listen and start asking the bigger questions about all vaccines, for example, and the pharmaceutical industry and what motivates them, which of course we know is money. Also to look for natural alternatives and think about their water and their food, but also where it comes from, whether it's locally grown, if it's grown with or without pesticides, for example. So it's a range of inputs and influences there. And also as communities gathered, wide-eyed at rallies, people have been having conversations and obviously connecting and given the opportunity to explore different ways of dealing with life and health.
Yeah. So things have changed a lot since you've done your degrees. Yeah. And you've seen things amp up with the pharmaceuticals. How do you anticipate, what's your hope for what's coming?
Meryl has.
Your hope.
Just more conversations, more building community. The best thing about this has been somewhat of a reversal to 2015 when parents were silenced, everybody was silenced over their choices. And, that was sort of really a difficult 5 years for people to reach out or connect with anybody. So the community building is really the important thing, that local connection. And also individuals are, taking the time to investigate and make their own choices. Again, I don't know that they can necessarily speak out about it to family and friends anymore still, but at least they've got somebody they can talk to who's on the same page, at least about some things.
It's you don't feel like maybe your family friends are supporting you, but I feel like now is such a good time to reach out, because the ones that are of us that are aware and conscious and trying to participate in creating a new, better world, we're quite visual. Like you can find those people now.
Yeah, you can.
Are you finding that?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot going. I mean, you're doing a podcast. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of people who are trying to navigate a better path and, bring people into to that connection and provide that information. So, yeah, it's good.
If you're a parent starting out on this, like you kind of feel like something's off, you're not 100% trusting the pharmaceuticals, but you just don't know what else to do. Where would you direct them? Where would they start? You got any good tips on, or people or publications or something that they can look at?
I mean, I keep saying I've got to update my little information booklet, Investigate Before You Vaccinate. The Australian Vaccination Network is a good resource. I don't have a website up at the moment. There are networks that people can be put in touch with, because obviously there is that, you make those choices and there is that exclusion from mainstream childcare kindergarten services, but you can still have play dates and things like that. Feel free to share my contact.
Can you talk about what you've written that you said you need to update, but what have you written, Kathy?
This thing.
Oh.
So this was actually a collaborative, it started out as a collaborative effort with all the information groups way back in the late 90s, but then I completely rewrote it in 2008. I haven't significantly updated it since, but it's just this is battered looking copy, but it's just a little envelope sized booklet, which is an introduction to all of the issues around vaccination, including, informed consent, which of course we don't see, and the actual vaccines according to the schedule. A lot of that is unchanged. Health and immunity, and, there's a section on animal vaccines and vitamin K. I can send you that as a PDF.
That would be fantastic.
You can attach it. The actual body of it needs updating for the changes in legislation and also all of the COVID information as well. So,
a little project for you.
Yeah.
If you're going to do it, it's a massive project.
Oh, well, it was back in 2008. I've made a significant start, so I'm hoping to have that published again in the next couple of months. We'll see how we go. But I used to be able to give talks, just about anywhere, and I'm still really happy to go and do that for people. If you've got a group of people you want to get together who want to really thrash it out and learn some of the background information and what their choices are, I'm happy to do that.
Fantastic.
This really has provided an opportunity for people to start question.
Mm-hmm,
And I mean, I guess once you're outed as an anti-vaxxer for not taking the COVID jabs, you haven't really got anything else left to lose, have you?
We're already on the hour. Actually, I've heard you speak at a rally, Kathy. I'm pretty sure, tell me if I'm incorrect here, but I remember you saying that you've obviously had 4 children who are now adults and you didn't immunise them, you didn't vax them, and that didn't cause as many problems as not having the COVID jab now that all did. Was that you that said that? You'd lost, maybe not lose friends and family, but you had more harder discussions during this time versus all of your years of not.
Yeah, you're right. I said that. Actually, I have said that, but you see, back in the day, I'd be interviewed all the time. People knew my stance. Do you know what I mean? And it's never been my thing to go judge people for their choices or, create an us and them type situation. And so it hasn't, people might think, oh, Kath's a bit crazy or something because they're not on board. And then also, regardless, I'd have people come up to me and go, hey, I've got this health problem that's not resolving or this or that, what am I going to do? And because they think Kath will know something or someone. And I do. I pretty well can. I can direct you to, somebody competent to help you. Don't you worry. But, with COVID, I don't know if it's the timing with having elderly parents, and my mum was in hospital and then nursing homes. And, there's they really did turn it very nasty in the division. And they started with the flu vaccine in May 2020. You could no longer visit an elderly relative or, a relative in a nursing home without having had flu vaccine. So it really did start making it obvious what your choice was. There's no radar to slip under anymore.
So that was the big difference, though, because you were able to have your opinion or your stance before and it didn't affect integrating with society. But now, okay, that's the big, okay, I get it.
So, and now it does, because you can't go to kindy, you can't go to childcare, you can't visit a nursing home. That's... And at the time, obviously, with COVID, you couldn't work. And, as I said the other night too, if you've been locked down for 3 months, you've taken these jabs and gotten sick because you're doing it for the greater good and you're doing it so that we can all come out of this, and somebody's not on that team, then...
Awesome marketing campaign that was. Awesome.
If you're not on the team, if you're not on board, then...
Not saving humanity by getting it. That marketing campaign is stellar.
Yeah. Then there's the same with childhood vaccines. It's, this idea of herd immunity. If you're not doing your bit, then you're putting every child at risk. So
it makes no sense.
No, no, it doesn't.
Makes no sense. That is what gets me a lot, is that the propaganda, the brainwashing actually makes zero common sense, sense at all. So if your kid is immunised, then it's safe. Why does the other child need to be? It just doesn't make any sense. Yeah?
No, it doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't stop people from drawing those conclusions. Look, if you are vaccinating, then you've got to hold down, you're holding a 2-month-old baby while it gets 3 needles. Okay, it ain't pleasant. So the person next to you who's not doing that, do you know what I mean? It's not a great leap to go, well, they're not on board, they're not doing the responsible thing. So therefore they're irresponsible.
Well, I hope more parents start asking questions. Have you seen an increase of more? Do you know the numbers on this actually? If parents have stopped, is it reduced immunisations?
No idea of numbers, but with no choice about, re-entering the workforce and using any childcare services, I imagine it's been very, very effective. Government stats are always reporting, high rates. If you're not going to vaccinate, you're not going to vaccinate, and you never will. If you're on the fence, you're not on the fence anymore. You're vaccinating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you can't be a fence sitter. It just doesn't there's no option. There's no option to be a fence sitter. It's one way or the other.
Do you
And
think
there's a lot of pressure to go in that direction. That means you can re-enter the workforce.
Do you think the COVID has woken more people up to the misleading agenda?
Definitely, it's got people on the streets. I mean, rallies were quite large in the day when, especially with the mandates. It's definitely got more people on the streets. They're awake to some things. It's got a bunch of people waking up to all sorts of things, all of the agendas, and really, really pushing back and fighting. So, yeah. I guess the thing is, if you've got a young family, that's your priority, though. Yourself, your life, your family, and it should be. So anyway, lots of people doing good things and campaigning and enlisting help, and lots of people stepping up to help just to spread information about smart cities, for example, digital IDs, and money, keep cash alive, all of these things. Just challenging and challenging and challenging, whereas challenging local council, challenging local government, state government, federal government, a lot more people writing in.
I'm feeling good. Like, I'm feeling really good about what's coming. And after 2015, people felt a little bit shamed or not confident to speak up and say what they're doing. I feel that's changing back again, that the ones that are not following the narrative are standing up, but they're standing up with some courage and are okay to say it.
Yeah, it's just hard to say. I mean, for as much as you've got that, because you've not got anything pervading any mainstream media still, so nothing is pervading mainstream.
Not relying on that.
No. So while that's happening, there's a lot of people who just still in this blocked existence. They don't see what's coming. They've got no idea. They're not engaging with that. They're living their lives.
All we can do is keep having the conversation, encouraging people to do their own research, to investigate if something's feeling a bit off. Go look for some answers.
Yeah, people will always look into things when they're ready to. You can't push them. It's like anything. You've got to come to that realization and awakening yourself. So
100%. Painful sometimes to watch, but yes, that is true.
Yeah, you just got to be there, just got to be there. We really do have to be there for people, not judge.
Yeah, and you've done such an amazing job that for decades now. What's the secret? Have you got a secret?
Oh, gosh, no, there's no secret. I've said to you before we started recording, I had a call last night, and it's just because you know what it's like. I didn't go, oh, I'm not vaccinating, and then live a life of happy joy without questioning anything. You have to question the whole way along. You also have to really deeply examine your choices and take responsibility for them. I mean, the secret's quite simple. When somebody rings and you feel like my job is to listen and give tools and help them on their journey, that's just really rewarding. It's just can't help but be rewarding. I'm not, dragging them off the street and shaking them and going, listen to me. They've come to me because, or somebody like me, because they've got a question and they're questioning things. And how can that not be good?
That's amazing. Well, thank you for doing that. That's beautiful to have that intention. Beautiful. And thank you for always being there for these people. No doubt you've helped guide a lot of people with information or just your support. You just being there to talk to is so helpful. So nice.
It's quite amazing because of to go from 2015, we had a rally, for No Jab, No Pay, 40 people there, and you're going, what? But, and then you go to thousands, and a lot of people actually along the way go, oh, thanks. You might not remember me, but we spoke back in the day. And, it's just community, sweetie. It's just community, and community is really important. We all need our tribe. I was self-parenting too, so I found it was really important to have community in my life as well.
You're saying that the mums I have been talking to lately, it's interesting that I'm finding that they are single soul mums with multiple children and are not only doing, not immunisations, but they're just doing other things as well. It's absolutely amazing, in awe of people that have got that courage and perseverance to do that. So amazing.
I think when you're busy, you're really busy. Do you know what I mean? And
you took on one thing, you might as well take it all on.
But it was always rewarding. Always, always full of gratitude, and that's priceless. So anyway, But that's, yeah, there you go. I think we're seeing that a lot now with everybody who's contributing in community. So many people really connecting and, yeah, contributing. It's amazing.
So
We've got a long way
exciting.
to go. We've got a long way to go. But
Don't say long. We've just got a little way to go.
you've got to build that solid foundation. We've been building a solid foundation.
The thing is, though, it doesn't have to be long because if people woke up tomorrow, not even everyone, but a percentage woke up tomorrow and said, you know what, no more, it would be done like that. So if these parents, because I know there is so many parents that sit on this, they feel like something doesn't sit right. They know in their inner knowing, they know that what they're doing does not benefit their child. If they listen to that and then acted upon it, would be good. Pharma would go. Big Pharma would be out of here.
Yeah, it's a really hard one. It's just really difficult. There's just those unknowns. The fear factor's been hammered forever. The fear of these diseases, the fear of not vaccinating. It's a big one.
But you can overcome it like you have, like
Yeah.
so many other, people have.
Yeah.
It's possible.
It is possible, absolutely. But you need some support. And, do have a long way to go before people can have all of those conversations and really own those decisions. So we can't, when I say we can't, unbelievably, when they were legislating to penalise parents for not vaccinating, there's very little pushback from anybody. I mean, the parents who were already not vaccinating, they wrote letters, but they were all ignored because it wasn't the agenda. And you already, again, we can go over and over this, but it is something that it comes with a moral, high ground, deliberately.
Some integrity.
Yeah.
Your own integrity, your own values.
Yeah, but I see the parents of young children today, and they're just they're really sensible, together, calm, reasonable approaches. The future bodes well with those kind of people as role models and supporters. I've been pulled away with work. I've been pulled away with family. I've been pulled away with rallies. So time to get work on this network again.
Yeah. Exciting times ahead. Exciting times ahead. Thank you so much for having the chat, Kathy, and sharing just like a little smidgen of your wisdom. There's so much more there, but if people want more information, I'll get a copy of your PDF. I'll have a way that people contact you, and let's just keep the conversation going. If you are interested, then we really need to. If people are feeling something's off or they've got questions, please just have a conversation. Keep your curiosity going.
Exactly, but I think you said the important thing, which is just to trust yourself and your gut instinct and your intuition. Unfortunately, with the circumstances, parents are having to just continually, they can see what's in front of them, they can see what's happening, but they can't make a choice to change things for the better, right? They can't follow their gut, they can't, which is what they were doing. Do you know what I mean? They were following their gut, they were delaying, they were refusing. Now they don't have that opportunity anymore. So, I think that's a really important point, is to actually think, what would I choose for me? Would I choose to go back to work after 6 months? There's a whole nother conversation. Yeah,
that is another whole conversation that we can have, because I am very interested about that conversation.
Yeah, I can tell. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, beautiful.
Thank you so much. We'll speak again soon.